Have you ever signed something and then had that nagging feeling, what did I really just agree to? Well, today we are diving deep into a fascinating and, frankly, radical idea from our source material. It's called the rescission of signature, and it's a document designed to challenge the very foundation of consent when you're dealing with official systems.
And it all starts with this one powerful question. When you put your signature on a government form, a court summons, pretty much any official piece of paper, are you accidentally stepping into a contract? A contract where maybe you haven't been told all the terms? It's a huge question, and it's the whole reason this document even exists.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll tackle this idea of presumed contracts. Then we'll get into the rescission document itself. After that, we'll look at the legal arguments it uses, how it's supposed to be used in practice, and finally, how it fits into a much, much bigger picture. All right, let's jump right into that foundational concept, the presumption of a contract. The entire argument in our source material hinges on this idea that a lot of our official interactions are built on these kinds of invisible agreements we never explicitly signed up for. Okay, so here's the core claim, and it's a big one. The source argues that what looks and feels like a legal proceeding is often, underneath it all, a commercial transaction. Think about a court summons. The idea here is that it's not really about law, but it's an offer for you to enter into a contract to settle some kind of financial claim. And language is everything here. Check out the distinction the source makes. It says crime is about a violation of law, totally separate from the word criminal, which it argues is a purely commercial term. It's a subtle change, right? But according to this view, that tiny shift in wording is how different rulebooks get applied to you, often completely without you even knowing it. So how does this whole system supposedly work? Well, it all hangs on one simple but incredibly powerful idea, the presumption of your consent. The source argues that just by showing up, just by signing your name, you are assumed to be in agreement, unless you very loudly and clearly say you're not. Okay, so if the big problem is this idea of presumed consent, then what's the answer? Well, this is where the rescission of signature document comes onto the stage. It's designed to be a direct weapon against that core presumption. So what is this thing exactly? It's basically a formal, notarized affidavit. Think of it as you standing up and putting it on the official record, declaring that you're taking back your signature and your consent from any and all of these presumed agreements, past, present, and future. The whole goal here is to get ahead of the game. The source material literally describes the document's purpose as a way to kill the presumption before anyone can ever use it against you. It's all about creating a public, undeniable record that you reject any hidden contract that might mess with your rights.
Now, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, can you really just withdraw your signature from everything? It's a fair question. And the document itself actually anticipates this by laying out some very specific legal arguments for why any consent you might have given was invalid from the get-go.
And the main pillar of that argument is a lack of full disclosure. The claim is pretty straightforward. If nobody ever explicitly told you that you were entering a commercial contract, one with real financial consequences, then your consent was never truly informed consent. How could it be? And this isn't some vague complaint. The document gets super specific, listing some heavy-hitting legal reasons for the rescission. We're talking claims of fraud, misrepresentation, hiding important facts, and even acting under duress or coercion. And look, this isn't just implied, it's spelled out word for word. Here's an actual quote from the affidavit template in the source. You can see it explicitly bases the whole rescission on these grounds, and it points a finger directly at hidden financial transactions. And check this out, it goes even a step further. This next quote shows how the document tries to get ahead of any future arguments. It preemptively declares that any consent they think they have from you should be officially recorded as being given under duress, threat, and coercion. It's an attempt to invalidate it before it's even brought up. So we've covered the what and the why. Now let's get into the how. The source doesn't just describe the document. It outlines a very specific, proactive strategy for actually putting it to use. So the game plan laid out has 4 very clear steps. 1, you get the affidavit notarized to give it that official stamp. 2, and this is supposedly the most important part, you get it recorded on the public record before any trouble starts. 3, you present it right at the very beginning of any proceeding. And 4, the source is very clear on this, avoid using a public defender because it argues that accepting one is itself an act of consenting to the system's contract. So why all the fuss about recording it publicly? Well, the thinking goes like this. Once it's in the public record, it's an established fact. And because of that, a court can be legally required to acknowledge it through something called mandatory judicial notice. Basically, it's a way to try and force the court to recognize that your non-consent was on the books before any of this even started. And finally, and this is so important to understand, the source doesn't pitch this document as some kind of magic bullet that solves everything. No, it's positioned as just one piece of a much larger puzzle, a whole process that's often called status correction. As you can see here, this rescission document is really just the opening move. The idea is that it clears the board of all those presumed contracts. After that, the process moves into some really complex territory, like making major filings under the Uniform Commercial Code, or UCC. The source then connects these commercial filings to the Certificate of Live Birth, which, in this worldview, isn't just a record of birth, but a financial instrument that created a corporate entity. An entity this whole process is designed to reclaim control over. And that leaves us right here, with the fundamental clash at the very heart of this idea. What actually happens when one person's public, formal declaration of non-consent runs headfirst into a massive system that, according to the source, is built on the silent presumption that everyone agrees? That's the core question this document is trying to force into the open.